Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to FPCI Public Forum. Today's public forum is held in a hybrid format, meaning in person and also online from our YouTube live stream. And we're glad to have everybody here gathering in person. We have around 60 students coming from universities, various universities from Jabodetabek region. And for those who are tuning in from our YouTube live stream, welcome to FPCI Public Forum. We have around 400 participants, online participants in total, coming from around 40 countries. We have Ukraine, Peru, Japan, Canada, US, Vietnam, Malaysia, New Zealand, Myanmar, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Poland, Argentina, and many other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia is the largest foreign policy group in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia. We have over 100,000 people in our network across Indonesia and throughout the world. And we're glad that you're joining us today in our public forum. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let us give a warm welcome to our honorable guest today, His Excellency Vasil Hamianin, our ambassador of Ukraine to Indonesia. Welcome. You. Welcome again to FPCI Ambassador. And also, as this forum is titled Voices from Ukraine, we have our distinguished guest coming from Ukraine today, who will be our panelist today. We have Dr. Alexei Haran. We have Ms. Lyubov Sibulska. We have Ms. Anna Lyubima. And also Mr. Alim Alif. Welcome to FPCI. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, let us first display a quick video of FPCI. So please enjoy. Fasil Hamiani to give an opening remark to us all. So, Ambassador Fasil, you may have the floor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for coming. And pertama-tama saya mau mengucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada Pak Dino, kepada FPCI team atas dukungan. Yeah, I thank you very much, Pak Dino, and everybody from the team for support and for being consistent, for support to democracy, for support to justice, to humanity. This is very important. We stand on that side together with all people who care. Actually, it's very important for us to be on the right side. We're not taking sides with names, but we're taking sides with principles. As I repeat, humanity, justice, democracy. And, well, I'm really glad I have the great, strong team of warriors from Ukraine, a representative of civil society of Ukraine, who are visiting Indonesia and who are actually changing the reality. Welcome, and I hope you will have efficient, fruitful, and victorious tour around Indonesia. Because, I repeat, all of us are fighting for what is right, for what is dearly loved and respected by the progressive humankind. I thank you very much, Padino, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming, thank you for joining. Let's start.
Thank you, Ambassador Fasil, for the remark. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we will begin our discussion on voices from Ukraine, what the Russian invasion means for the world and for Indonesia. So, for that, I would like to hand over the floor to our founder and chairman, Dr. Dino Patijalal. Dr. Dino, you may take over.
Thank you very much. May we begin the show right away? Let me just ask all the speakers to take your seats. Yeah, thank you. And also, tolong kursi di depan diisi ya. Good. Thank you, everybody. And I think I hope you're not using this event to skip school, right? Skip college, right? But if you are, it's for a good cause. I want to welcome all our friends from Ukraine, and thank you, Ambassador Vasil. He's really an inspiration. I have always told this to students of international relations. He is an example of what you should do if your country is one day, and I hope we will never be invaded by any country, but if that ever happens to Indonesia, you will fight like crazy for the honor, for the survival, for the independence, for the sovereignty of your nation. Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for joining us here. We have 4 friends from Ukraine who are here. Oh, by the way, before this, I want to say thank you to John Nicol from the British Embassy, and thank you for joining us here today, and also our friends from the UK. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. And so we got 4 friends who are here from Ukraine, fresh from the flight. And I have to warn you, if you go to Indonesia, you'll fall in love with the country, right? And it's hard to leave the country. But I can guarantee you also, you will see people with a smiling face and who will become your friends for life, right? I mean, that's what... right? And orang Indonesia seperti itu, right? Yeah. So welcome to Indonesia, and I look forward to hearing your perceptions and your thoughts on what the war has meant for Ukraine, but also what it means for the world and also for Indonesia. And for FPCI, our position is very clear. And I know there's a lot of some pro-Russian sentiments out there and so on, but we are not swayed. We're not fooled by this. This is really what Ambassador Vasil has said. This is really about whether or not you are on the side of independence, of sovereignty, of truth, of democracy, of human rights, of decency, and of international law, right? And these are the things that are very dear to Indonesians. You know, our whole foreign policy is about fighting for independence, right? About decolonization, is about preserving our unity, right? About not having anybody take any territory away, right? In Ukraine, I think, is it 1/4 of the population have become displaced? Imagine if 75 million, 1/3, right? Imagine if 100 million Indonesians displaced, right? Become refugees or internal displaced persons because a foreign country that doesn't like how you do your business, how you run the country, is imposing these conditions on you, right? So I think how we position ourselves about Ukraine says a lot about who we are. Yeah, and this is why it's important for us to have a very clear position and clear stance on this. Yeah. With that, I would like to begin our discussions. I will invite Dr. Oleksiy Haran to give some thoughts, and then after that, we'll have Lyubov Cybulska. I hope I say your name right. Thank you. And then Anna Lyubima and Alim Alif, who's from Crimea Tatar. Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Oleksiy, who is a professor of comparative politics at the University of Kiev Mohyla Academy, and he is also a member of Public Conservative Board at the Ukrainian Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and also a member of Public Expert Board of Ukrainian Presidency in 2002-2004. Among many other positions. Yeah, please, Dr. Oleksiy.
Terima kasih. Okay, so we came from Ukraine. This is a photo from the space. Look, you see the lights and you see almost black. Why? Because Ukraine is under bombardment and they're bombarding our energy infrastructure. So we have blackouts in Ukraine. We have a really difficult situation for civilians, for civilians, I would say, and my colleagues will tell you about that a little bit more. So what about historical reasons for this war? Let me start with history. Okay, look, this is medieval Europe, 10th and 11th century. Look at this state, large state. It's written Kievan Rus, but actually this title was invented later by historians. The original is just Kiev state. So it was one of the most powerful at the beginning of Middle Ages in Europe. So you see Kiev on the map. Do you see Moscow? No, because Moscow didn't exist at that time. So Kiev is at least 700 years older than Moscow, when Kiev was a prosperous city of the prosperous, let's say, kingdom, principality. On the place of Moscow, there were swamps and forests. Okay? But, you know, history is a very complicated process, very, very complicated. So the state disrupted, Moscow emerged, and then at some point, Ukraine was incorporated into the state which was later called Russian Empire. Okay? Russian Empire. So, in Russian Empire, Ukrainian language was banned from official use, and the very term Ukrainians was banned. Do you know how we were called officially in the Russian Empire? Anybody knows? Little Russians. We were called little, so they are great Russians, we are little Russians. Despite the fact that, you know, much more ancient traditions, but in the Russian Empire we were like discriminated. And now you can hear from Mr. Putin that there are no Ukrainians in separate nation. We are just one people, one Russian people. Okay? So basically in his rhetoric, he is coming to the ideology of the Russian Empire, neglecting existence of Ukrainians as a separate nation. And if you read official propaganda from Moscow, you will see the slogans, de-Ukrainianize Ukraine. If you don't believe me, Google it, de-Ukrainianize Ukraine, and you'll find it on official Russian state sources. Or Ukrainians and Russians are one people, Putin. You can Google it. He said it on many, many, many occasions. So that's why this war is about actually existence of Ukrainians as a nation. We are fighting against former colonial empire, which doesn't recognize our existence as a nation. So that's the reason for the conflict. It's not about NATO. It's about desire of Mr. Putin to restore the Russian empire. Now, let's talk. Okay, so this is famous student revolution, Maidan. Let me show to you. Okay, so this is a photo from Ukrainian revolution, one of the many photos. You see this flag is Ukrainian flag, right? This one, you don't know. This is the flag of Ukrainian nationalists, okay? But what is the flag in the middle? It's Russian flag. How could it emerge here? Because there were many Russians in Ukraine, ethnic Russians, and they were thinking that we are fighting together for freedom. In Russia, there's no freedom. But there are Russians who are living in Ukraine. So they put this flag as a sign of solidarity, that we are together fighting for freedom. And because we are a democratic country, this was existential threat for Russia. So, what happened after that? Annexation of Crimea. This is very, okay, this is very important. Do you know about Budapest Memorandum? Have you heard about it? 1994, Ukraine had the third nuclear arsenal in the world. Ukraine gave it up for the guarantees of territorial integrity from three great countries, the US, the UK, and guess what is the third country? Russia. Okay? So, in 2014, we were a non-bloc, non-nuclear country, and by the way, the founding member of the United Nations. And Russia attacked us with the annexation of Crimea. So, okay. So, look. Before Russian attack, Ukrainians were very, very positive towards Russia. Red line. After Russia attacked, the positive attitude to Russia collapsed. The negative dramatically skyrocketed. And the same about NATO. Before 2014, only 12% of Ukrainians were in favor of NATO. Only 12%. Okay? Officially, Ukraine was non-bloc country. So no threat to Russia. We didn't want to join NATO. Ukrainians were against it. And Russia attacked, contrary to all its international obligations. And after that, it's very naturally, support for NATO skyrocketed. So now 90% of Ukrainians are in favor of the European Union and also in favor of joining NATO because we need security umbrella. But there were no NATO bases, no NATO soldiers, and no missiles in Ukraine. Look, it's all in Putin's mind. We are fighting on ourselves. Ukrainians are dying on ourselves. Finally, belatedly, we started to receive military support from international community. And by the way, you know that Ukraine is supported not only by the West, by other countries. You know the votes in the United Nations General Assembly, 144 countries supporting Ukrainian territorial integrity, only 5 countries against, and Indonesia, thank you very much, terima kasih. You are supporting territorial integrity of Ukraine. So I think this is very logical. This is a very logical step, and I believe you can easily understand us. We are fighting against former colonial empire, which is trying to restore the empire and actually to deny our right to existence. There are very dramatic consequences of this war. Final slide. Oops. Oops. Oh, okay. Okay. It's very dramatic. We are bleeding. We are bleeding. You know, every third Ukrainian is displaced. Many, many people are tortured, killed, deported. My colleagues will tell about that. But 92% of Ukrainians believe in Ukraine's victory. What do we want? So we are saying, Russians, go home. That's all. Leave the territory of Ukraine. And that's all. We are fighting for freedom, territorial integrity, and for democracy. So this is what the war about. It's not between Russia and the West, Russia and NATO. It's about colonial empire and the country which is striving for independence and democracy. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you. It's fascinating. Now I will ask Lyubov. And by the way, has anyone ever heard the story about a Ukrainian woman who threw a cucumber at the drone? Anyone?
Jar with pickled cucumbers.
Yes.
Have you heard about it?
Okay.
It was very famous story on Twitter, which actually illustrated that Ukrainians are very fearful and they're fighting. Everybody is engaged, and it was the story that got viral, and I was the one who posted it on Twitter.
So it became viral because she posted it, how Russian women fought drones with cucumber, right? So that'll do anything to support the fight there. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us today, and thank you for your support. Thank you that you see the war how it is in reality, but not through lenses of Russian propaganda. We came from Kiev, which is under bombardment, and basically every week, at least twice, we have heavy missile shelling targeting our infrastructure, killing our people, and it's just in Kiev, and it's not the hottest spot in Ukraine. And 1 year ago, when the full invasion started, I had a terrible dream. It was the worst dream in my life. I woke up having the dream, seeing myself basically screaming that much that I was basically exhaling my life. And I woke up and I took my phone, and I saw a message from my family that they started. And then when I told this dream to some journalists, they decided that it was like the illustration of this terrible feeling that a lot of Ukrainians had at that moment. And I remember very vividly that everybody was engaged. Everybody. I used to be a journalist, and then in 2014, when the war actually started, and Russia occupied Crimea and the part of Donetsk and Lugansk region, I joined the government for a while, and then since then I've been analyzing Russian disinformation. And so when the full invasion started, I started getting so many messages with one question: what can I do? How can I fight? I have a laptop, I have a phone, and I'm sitting in a bomb shelter. How can I fight? How can I join? I even now I have goosebumps when I speak about it. And I was getting so many requests like this that at some point my colleagues and we decided to divide all these people by topics. Like, you will work with international audience to develop and spread messages for our foreign partners, and you will work with the Russians, and you will work with the Ukrainians, encouraging them to fight and lifting their spirit. And it's been a year. It's almost a year. And we all remember that Putin and Kremlin wanted to take Kyiv in 3 days. And now they cannot achieve even one single strategic goal. They couldn't take Kharkiv, they couldn't take Kyiv, obviously. They couldn't even take Kherson. They took it and they had to leave it because of Ukrainian counteroffensive. And now they're fighting for very small city, which is basically a town in eastern Ukraine called Bakhmut. Yes, it is intense, but it has no strategic means, it has no strategic importance at all. But they want to have at least small victory to the anniversary of this war. And because they cannot achieve military goals, they cannot achieve anything on the battlefield, they turned to terrorism. They started hitting our infrastructure, depriving people of water, warmth, electricity. It is like, just to give you a feeling how it looks like a total disaster, because if you imagine a hospital with the small kids, and these kids do not have opportunity to get heated water, for instance.
By the way, there are seats at the end there. Yeah.
Or people who cannot get surgery because there is no electricity, or they have surgery with candles around them. So you can imagine what implications it has for our people. And a lot of people are asking how this war is changing. It's changing, I would say that now it's clear for us that it is a war of attrition. They want to exhaust us, but they also want to exhaust the whole world. Russia is imposing a narrative that this is the war between the West and Russia, which is not true. Ukrainians would fight with Western weapons or without it. It's not about, side who supports us. We would fight even with bare hands, this is a war about values. And that's why, Russia wants to basically divide the world in two parts. Like, you see, there is West, which is colonial, and a lot of countries feel resentment towards it. And here is anti-West. So join this coalition, be with us. But the fact is that there is international law, and Russia is violating this international law. And if we let Russia win, which we want, then it's going to be a very bad, strong signal to other countries that they could act in this manner, they could act this way, and then it will change the world completely, the world's order. I had to evacuate my 2 kids from Ukraine, and I stayed there to fight. And I fight on the information field, and this is the least I can do comparing to those who fight at the front line. And these people who fight on the front line, they are exactly like you. I see now in front of me free, brave, young, courageous people who want to live their own lives, right? Who want to choose their own, everything, whatever they expect. They want to choose what language to speak. They want to choose what music to listen, what literature to read. And that's exactly what we want. We want to live in an independent country, and we want to have our language and our history, our culture, and that's exactly what Russia is targeting. Russia doesn't need any new land. Again, Russia is the biggest country in the world. They cannot cope with the land they have. You know it better than me that they just, the Russia basically have a few cities which are relevantly successful and populated. But the rest of this territory is almost, empty. So they don't need territory. They want to destroy our identity because it's a threat for them. So yeah, we are fighting for our dream, and our dream is to be free and independent, and to be Ukrainians, and not to be killed, not to be raped, not to be deported because we are Ukrainians. And literally, when we say deported, that's what they do. More than 1 million people are being deported to Russia forcefully. There is a process of filtration when persons are checked, and if Russian soldiers find any tattoo which reminds some, Ukrainian symbols, or they check your social media if they see some support to Ukrainian army, or if they see that you donated to Ukrainian army, they can detain you and they can torture you. They literally kidnap our kids. They separate Ukrainian kids from their parents and they send them to Russia, depriving them of education, Ukrainian language, parenthood, so basically turning them into Russians. So I think that I would stop here and would gladly,
Thank you, Lyubov. And by the way, you mentioned that Ukraine just wants to have its own identity, right? So I'm going to have a check. How many of you guys think that every country is free to choose its own identity? Who believes every country should have the freedom to choose its own identity and not other country dictating it? Okay, so we're clear. Everybody. Yeah. All right, good. And next we have Anna. Anna is the head of the, Anna is the director of the Department of International Cooperation at the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's also the head of a humanitarian group of the International Assistance Headquarters for Ukrainians. Yeah, Anna, please.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, I'm so grateful for your interest and time. Before I start my short briefing, I'd like to ask, has anybody ever been in Ukraine? No. And has anybody know about some famous Ukrainians or things that was developed by Ukraine? No? Has anybody used WhatsApp? Yeah. And do you know that WhatsApp was developed by Ukrainian, but then was sold to other company? Do you know that the biggest plane in the world was Ukrainian, and its name was the Mriya. That, if to translate, it means dream. It was the biggest, the largest airplane in the world, and it was cargo airplane. And Lady Gaga used it to transmit it to when she organized some concert performances. She ordered this plane in Ukrainian company. Yes.
destroyed. Right?
Yeah, but it's next. My sentence is unfortunately, this plane was destroyed by Russian troops because it was situated in near Kyiv, Hostomel airport, and in the first day of Russian invasion, it was destroyed totally. And now we have a dream to rebuild our dream. Yes, and probably I can also mention some item about our famous fashion designers, because the last performance of Beyonce, her dress was created by Ukrainian designer, that red dress. So now you can operate with this information and answer that you know some important things that was created by Ukrainians. And I'd like to share my personal experience, because when it was started, I accompanied the Ukrainian delegation to big forum within the framework of Expo 2020 in Dubai, and our Ukrainian business participating in agro-tech panel session. And like a majority of our business, I do not believe that the work can start in the 21st century, when we talk about IT, about space, about something like unusual. And no, it can happen because we have crazy neighbors that do not understand that there are independent states and they have a right to do their own business, to live their own life. Yeah, and. I do not want to talk about some figures about our turnover, but I'd like to emphasize that we really have a lot of points perspective for cooperation. For example, we know that Indonesian demand as many apples for 20 days as Ukraine unfortunately export per 1 year to Indonesia, but can meet your needs because we produce from 1,000 till 1.5 million tons of apples. That is why we should promote our possible spheres of activities. As well, I can mention the pharmaceutical sphere of activity because Ukraine can propose good quality and better prices for such products. As well, I cannot diminish the role of Ukraine in providing food security because the general volume of Ukraine's export in the world of sunflower oil is 47%, and it ranks first place in the world of export sunflower oil to the world. 10% of wheat all over the world. So Ukraine provide 10% of all wheat in the world. 17% of barley and 14% of corn. So you can imagine that it's really huge figures. Yes, unfortunately now business really struggling, and there are a lot of risks for them because of blackouts, as my colleagues told you. As well, there is no assurance now, and we and our government work to find some finance to do our best for our companies. And as well, we try to attract more investment. Even now, we establish such platform like e-residence for foreigners that would like to invest to Ukraine, but cannot come to Ukraine, and they can operate online distantly, and pay taxes and register a business. And even Ukrainian company now we can, and before we started, we can register our company by one click by smartphone. We have such application like DIA, and we have passport in our smartphone, and we can use it everywhere. We can register our business, we can pay taxes, we can do everything with our smartphone. We are really a developed country in this sphere, so, and we are open and we can share our experience, and we have a lot of joint projects with different foreign countries, so we are really friendly country. And what else I'd like to mention about our business? It's now that more complicated logistic. Our seaports are blocked, and we can use just railway and cargo trucks. That is why at the beginning of the war, we had a huge lines of cargo trucks near border with Poland. And now the situation is better because we have developed our infrastructure. We have built more custom terminals, and our Ministry of Digitalization established such application like e-Cherva in Ukrainian. It's an online service for register to this line, so you can come to the border and when you know your time, approximate time when you're crossing the border, so there is no line now. And our Ukrainian companies are relocated to more safety places because a lot of factories was destroyed. And I'd like to mention that the biggest solar power plant in Europe was destroyed by Russian troops, and it was situated in Ukraine, in Kherson region. And Kherson region was occupied by Russian troops, and during this occupation they done a lot of bad things. They plundering our grain from storages and then sell it. But now business is not about money. Now business is about humanity. And that is why our president initiated a program, Grain from Ukraine. And it's like assistance to Asian and African countries. And we do our best in delivering as much grain as we can, because Ukraine needs produce 2 or even 3 times more than we need for domestic needs. That is why we are conscious and we realized our responsibility in this process of providing food security. And are you talking about logistics? So now we really need support of international community in supporting this sea grain corridor to export, to deliver grain and agricultural products. And probably we need to open 3 more seaports in Mykolaiv region, because it will increase our capacity. Yeah, and but why I talk about bad things? Our companies continue to develop, and as 60% of our companies, our chamber is well operating, and we try to find new markets. We try to find new opportunities for our companies. And just to mention one statistic, that half of new companies that was established in Poland last year, 2022, was Ukrainian. Half of all foreign companies in one country. So our companies try to survive as well. They try to find the markets where they can invest and build new factories. They are ready to establish new supply chains. They are ready to find new markets. So we can also recommend them to look at Indonesia, because it's a huge market. It's a so perspective market. And we understand the role of Indonesia, leading role of Indonesia in Southeastern Asia. That is why we are here to find new opportunities. Yes, we'd like to introduce Ukraine like a modern country with its an identity, and countries that can share the experience and like to make this world better and peaceful.
While Mike is passing, I'm sorry, I would like to sing one thing. Do you know famous Christmas song? Da 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 da. Do you know this? Do you know who wrote it? You are right, but you can check it on Google. It was written by Ukrainian composer Leontovich, and it's based on Ukrainian melodies. Check it on Google.
Thank you. So I would like to invite Pa Alim Alif. Pa Alim is Deputy Director General of a Ukrainian Institute. He is a human rights activist and also a journalist. But he's also, another interesting thing is he's neither in ethnic identity, neither Ukrainian or a Russian. He's Crimean Tatar. By the way, does Tatar source come from the word Tatar, or it has nothing to do?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I
and
just need to ask you.
it's one more reason why we have very complicated relations with Russia.
Yeah.
Salam alaikum.
Oh, and the last one, sorry, I need to say that he's also a Muslim, right? So that he has very interesting angles being a Ukrainian. Yeah, please.
Salam alaikum one more. Yeah, just imagine how to smell your house, your home. How to taste your home. You know, during last 9 years, I only imagine how to taste, how to smell, what the noises of my home, because during last 9 years, my home is occupied by Russia. I'm originally from Crimea. Crimea is a peninsula, Ukraine peninsula in the south part of Ukraine. And this war was started from Crimea from the February 2014. And Crimean Tatars is a very small. It's a small, but also brave group, ethnic group in Ukraine. We're indigenous Muslim people of Ukraine, and for us, this war is also anti-colonial war, and I just will explain. Yeah, I just will explain why. During last 7 or 8 centuries, Crimean Tatars has our own state in Crimea, and also we have our own Crimean People's Republic, and this Crimean People's Republic was established in 1917, and it was the first Islamic democratic republic in the world. And our constitution of 1917 gives the right for the women to right to the vote on the elections. And these democratic traditions for us very important. And now when I talk about colonization has a few dimensions. During the last 9 years, we fixed more than 4,000 cases of human rights violations. And it's all of varieties of violations, all of spectrum of violations. But it's only at top of iceberg. And the tip of iceberg is this new colonization. First of all, it's about identity. A lot of my colleagues talks about identity. And because identity is the answer of the question, who I am, yeah? And we have our own political body, that name Mejlis, you know this word Mejlis, yeah, Mejlis of Crimean Tatar people. And in 2016, it banned by Russia. And now leaders of Mejlis are persona non gratas in Crimea or in a prison, like my very close friend Nariman Jalal. He's a deputy head of the Mejlis of Crimean Tatar people, and he's a former journalist, and now he's sentenced to 17 years of colony in Russia. And he's very clever, very intellectual person. But for Russians, people with values of freedom and dignity, it's a question of their own defense. Yeah. Second, it's about culture. Today, is the Crimean Tatar language is one of the vanishing languages, according to UNESCO list. And today, only 3% of pupils of Crimea can learn Crimean Tatar language. The same story about religion. We are Sunni Muslims, and during last 9 years, mostly all of persecution against Crimean Tatars goes into religious ground. Russian and the Russian Federation said that we are terrorists and extremists, and all of these articles in court is about terrorism and extremism. It means that, we want to live in our own land, but we want to live in our own land as a free people, not under Russian invasion. One more, it's about settlement colonization. I just give you two numbers. Crimean Tatars know how to be with Russia. During the last 4th century, Today's occupation is the third attempt of colonization of peninsula. In the 18th century, by Catherine II, it was the first time. During the Soviet period and Stalin's deportation of Crimean Tatars, it was a genocide of the Crimean Tatar people, and were deported to the Central Asia, to Siberia, etc., 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 etc. And today, before 18th century, before the first annexation, 95% of all of population of Crimea were Crimean Tatars. Now it dropped to 13% in Crimea. And it means Russia tried to to broke our roots and to colonize Crimea by Russians. For today, 700,000 of new populations comes from Russia to Crimea, and 70,000 Crimean inhabitants just left Crimea, and it was a brain drain. And today we, for us, it's our struggling for our lives, our identity. It's our existential struggle. And for today, 2 years ago, President Zelensky established the Crimean platform. It's an international tool of the occupation of Crimea. And this Crimean platform take part more than 50 countries. And we ask another countries also to join it. Because, it's about not only about human rights, not only about dignity and identity, it's also about the system of international cooperation and international law. Last but not least, today a lot of Muslims, together with Ukrainians, with different nations and people, struggle into Ukrainian army. A lot of my friends in army, a lot of my friends living under occupation. My close friends in a prison, yeah. But I know that we will win. We haven't any another choice, yeah. And that's why we ask to support different countries. Support your friends in Ukraine if you have friends, or communicate with academical, cultural institutions. Yeah. Come to Ukraine and visit to Ukraine after our winning, but now it's also possible to do it. And
you can sit next to Ambassador Vasil, by the way. There's 2 seats there. Sorry.
Yeah.
He doesn't bite. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Please, Alimov. There.
Yeah, and we will win, and we also will win with your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please.
May I just add one thing on Muslim issue? First of all, actually, I would like to say that Alim is a vivid example of Ukrainian political nation. Okay, so he is Crimean Tatar, ethnic Crimean Tatar, Muslim, but he's part of Ukrainian political nation. And that's very important, so it doesn't mean what is your ethnicity, language, confession. You love this country, you want to defend it, you belong to Ukrainian political nation. For you, Indonesian, it's easy to understand. The second point about Muslims is what Russia is doing. They are mobilizing Muslims from Russia, from those regions which are underdeveloped, because a lot of Muslim regions within Russia, they are underdeveloped, so they mobilize these Muslims and send them to Ukraine to kill other Muslims. Okay, so that's, the tragedy.
One of the main muftis of Ukraine, Said Ismagilov, he is in Ukraine army now as a paramedic, and it's one of the cases how it's Muslims struggle now in Ukraine.
So please think about your questions that you want to ask to the panelists. But I want to ask two questions from my side. One is, I'm still having a hard time trying to figure out what is the strategic goal of Putin in his war against Ukraine. Is it one, just to punish Ukraine because he believes that Ukraine is flirting with NATO, so just a punitive action? Or number two, to grab as many territory of Ukraine for inclusion into Russian territory, or three, to totally conquer Ukraine and then establish a puppet government, which is what has been done in many other countries. And second question is this. Okay, all right. I want you to explain. Yeah. But second question is this: there was an analysis in Foreign Policy magazine recently that said that if Russia were ever militarily defeated from Ukraine and to withdraw, that would be the beginning of the unraveling of Putin's political grip in Russia, right? And that was actually a serious analysis, right? I'm just thinking, from your viewpoint, what would be that point for President Putin, for him to say, "I've had enough, so let's just pull out," right? Because in Afghanistan, the Soviets at some point came to that point, right? But in Ukraine, what would be that point that Putin said, "Okay, this $160 billion is just not gonna make me achieve this, and let's just pull out"? Yeah. When would that be achieved?
On the strategic goal, I think that the main goal, like really strategic goal, is to restore the empire. Putin, as we know, thinks that the collapse of Soviet Union is the biggest disaster of the 20th century, and that's what he wants to achieve. And first of all, he needs Ukraine to stay alone without any support of international partners, and then it doesn't really matter whether they occupied 2-3 regions. It would be very easy to occupy the rest of the country, and it's not just about Ukraine. Then obviously they will go further, and if you look and listen to what they're saying about the Baltic states, about Poland, it's obviously, very imperialistic rhetoric, and they are not going to stop. If the world allows Russia to go on, Russia will not stop. On the second question, I think that defeat will make him change his mind. Only defeat, unfortunately. There is no sign that they can somehow go for equal negotiations or something. That Russia, Putin, Kremlin, they talk about peace talks, about negotiations, but in fact, they just want to gain some time to regroup, strengthen their army and attack us again. Like, this is obvious. And if you look at the history of Russia's relations with its neighbors, you will see that Russia never sticks to the agreements. Never. It always breaks agreements with other countries.
Is there a possibility that he will, you can answer this, Alexei, is there a possibility that the defeat on the ground is bad enough that Putin will consider using tactical nuclear weapons? Tactical bukan semuanya ya, tapi di tempat tertentu gitu.
Look,
possibility.
Actually, there is a possibility, but it depends to a great extent to the position of the international community. Putin was talking about using nuclear weapons, but then China and India said to him, no. Okay, so we believe it's really important, because he will not gain a lot militarily, but he would lose a lot in the world. So, but we cannot exclude it. But again, what makes him to retreat? Unfortunately, this is only the language of force. But look, what the paradox is, because there's no democracy in Russia, everything is controlled. So even if Putin is defeated in Ukraine, domestically, through television, he could say, oh, we got a victory. You know, we destroyed Ukrainian nuclear arsenal, biological weapons, and all these things. We are the winners. We reached the aim of the military operation because, you know, there's no democracy, there's no discussion. So he can present whatever he wants. But definitely your question is tough, you know.
Yeah. And I'd like to add just one fact. I totally agree with my colleague Lyubov that Russia every time violates international law and breaks the treaties because, you know, the Sea Grain Corridor agreement was signed in Istanbul on 23rd of July. And our Odessa seaport was targeted by Russian missiles on 24th of July, so next day. Everyone knows that pacta sunt servanda is from international law, the general principle of international law. But what we can see.
And one sentence. Look, this war is for Russia. It's imperialistic war, and Russian Empire is a little bit different type of empires. Yeah, they grab all of bad things from the colonized territories and say that it's our own thing. Good. Yeah, appropriate all of good things.
Any question? Anyone want to raise? Okay, there's one. The lady in with the white ini sama yang lady ya. Okay, but also so we'll take 4 questions in a row. But Dr. Alexei, there's a question from Nikkei Asia. Maybe you want to answer this. How do you view Chinese President Xi Jinping's planned visit to Russia in early spring? Okay, so that's the first question, and then so go ahead.
This is
sorry. Let's take the questions. Yeah, please. State your name and where you're from. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Korni. I'm from Bakri University. I would like to ask about the European Union role to help in the Ukrainian because this is quite of my concern in some of months last years. I see European Union have a lot of $1 billion giving to Ukrainian. Also, the European Parliament, European Commission, all of the European heads have been giving a lot of support. But do you think that is enough? Because a lot of countries, European is not just one country. A lot of government have been involving themselves to the Ukrainian war. I mean the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Do you think that is enough? And what kind of role that you hope the Indonesian people, including us as young people, to helping the dissemination of information, the real information? I have been talked with Mr. Ambassador, with Miss Amy in embassy. So I think there's a lot of question on my head. What kind of support that we could give to you? That's the first question. The second.
Do you mind if we just take one? Yeah. Okay. The lady in white hijab. Yeah, please.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Safinka from UPN Veteran Jakarta. Thank you for
where? Dari mana?
UPN Veteran Jakarta.
Oh,
okay. Thank you for the opportunity to asking the honorable speakers here. So I'll ask a simple question. So this public discussion is talk about the invasion to Russia, to Ukraine. I really feel sorry about that. That I'm representing to the most youth in Indonesia. I really feel sorry and sympathize also when 2 countries in tensions and escalated to be armed war. This is also for Ukraine now. Ukraine's, of course, struggling for land and rights. Response to this, it is impossible for us as the youth to provide a safe place to refugee or a sending military aid. Also, we don't have any power to government. So I'm asking from the Ukraine perspective, what you expected from us as a youth in Indonesia to support you in the situation? As I talked before, that we if possible to provide you a military aid. Maybe as Indonesian youth did mostly is like support from online, like a Twitter and Instagram. So I asking you now, what you really expected from us to support you in this situation? Thank you.
Okay. Next is the lady in yellow. By the way, the woman in white hijab, can you stand up? I want to ask a question. If we send you a Ukrainian student to UPN veteran, will you welcome her or him as your brother and sister? Okay, good. Let's work on that. Yeah. Okay.
I would like to be a student.
Oh, most
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siva Gaya from FVCI Chapter Universitas Indonesia, and thank you so much for the opportunity. As we know, COP27 International Climate Conference just held in Egypt on November 2022, and the conference agreed to stabilize greenhouse gas conservation and many more. However, Russia's war in Ukraine will impacting global environment agenda as energy dependency, especially on Europe to Russia, will hamper this climate change. So, until we have actually won the war, how do you view on the global outlook on our climate change in spite of the invasion? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just going to take more questions. The gentleman, right? So if we just go one round, yeah? Yeah, the gentleman, yes. Yeah. Did you
Okay.
want to ask? Yes, okay. Please.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dino. And I just want to have a question. I'm Dennis. I'm from Universitas Indonesia. I have a
Which
question.
university, sorry?
Universitas Indonesia.
Okay.
I have a question on, especially as we know that Western countries have give lots of military weapons and aid to Ukraine, and how I just want to ask on the economic side, especially when Ukrainians, the economy is collapsing really hard because of this invasion, and it's not able to provide independently services like social services, and especially that the government must function. So when I hope we all here believe that we can actually won the war, especially the Ukrainian side can won the war. Until that happen, how do you see what can we do international community on how to economic recovery? What are the most important key parts that Ukrainian must have to actually recover their economy and bring their social services back, especially to the communities like that? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Kisha. I'm from National University, Jakarta. So my question is regarding about future. How does it feels Ukraine to really to build futures, like to put something that you can share with your future? So kind of like this. After this conflict or this war is end between Ukraine and Russia, how it's possible Ukraine to reassemble what been destroyed, like community or like a society, how to possible to maintain future, and if is it not, I mean, it's not really done enough with this conflict and war, how it's supposed to be like Ukraine to reassemble everything in the future? That's my further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then this is the last question from Zakaria Kawi. I think Alimov should be answering this. How can the principle of responsibility to protect be reconciled with the doctrine of non-interference in international law? Right. So on the one hand, you can't interfere, but okay. All right. Good. So panelists, please. Who wants to start?
Okay, on China. Let's start with China, just small nuclear country. Look, you know that just on the eve of the invasion to Ukraine, Putin was in China. They signed a declaration, declaration, strategic partnership without limits. So I believe it was kind of stimulus for Putin to start to intervene. Okay, and frankly speaking, there are no official confirmation, definitely, but I think China knew what Putin was going to do. But if you follow Chinese narrative, it's basically like the Russian one. So it's about, you know, Russia and NATO and all this stuff. However, Russian initial plans collapsed. And now China is taking more cautious approach. So again, at the level of narratives, they are quite, you know, in, how to say it, unison, in line with what Russia is saying, okay? But definitely, again, there were closed information that both China and India, they demanded for Russia to not to talk about nuclear war. China is afraid of Western sanctions. Also, if China would support Russia, so there would be inevitably also Western sanctions. And that's why I think that at the level of the rhetoric, China will continue to repeat what Russia is saying. But the real steps of China would be much more cautious. That's my understanding, you know, and you never know what is going behind, because there's no transparency both in Russia and in China. On the issue of non-interference and right to protect, right? Yes. You mean protect what? Human rights or what?
A right to protect people who are under attack. Human rights.
And non-interference? Yeah. No. When we are talking about non-interference, it means non-interference into domestic affairs. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't interfere if there is a humanitarian catastrophe, if you are going to help these people. If you go into history on the eve of World War II, if you know about the war in Spain, civil war in Spain, actually, you know, fascists in Spain, they were supported by Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, and the United Kingdom and France, they declared, we do not interfere. Okay, we are not going to supply arms to Republicans in Spain. So the fascist won the victory in Spain. So I think here there's no contradiction. If you would like to find contradictions, there are contradictions between the principle of not interference and defense of human rights. Here, yes, you know, there is contradiction, right? Because, you know, when you are caring about human rights in other countries, this country may say, okay, but there is a non-interference. So here there is a contradiction in international law, in understanding. But regarding the right to support people who are fighting for independence, I don't see any problem here.
I would take two questions. Is it enough? I mean, EU support. I think nothing is enough until we win. Nothing is enough. If Russia is not defeated, it's not enough. And imagine if Nazi Germany had won back in 2045. Like, what would have happened? It would be a disaster for the world. And that's what's going to happen if we allow Russia to win right now. Because this is very, very harmful mindset. It's a huge chauvinistic, racist, xenophobic country, which is trying to change the whole world's order, and we shouldn't allow them to do it. So we appreciate the support we get, but obviously it's not enough.
Can I just ask a question? If Putin says we will guarantee Ukraine's neutrality, will Ukrainians have
Never. It's impossible. Like, it's impossible.
No, because we were neutral. He attacked us.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe me, Putin and Russian establishment, they all know perfectly that there is no NATO in Ukraine. that Ukraine was not going to join NATO, that there are no NATO bases in Ukraine. Like it was totally clear for them, but they wanted to find justification for the broader public why they were doing it. They know how things looked like. So, but they needed justification for the audience. And I'd like to take another question on how can you help? Yes, you cannot give us military aid, but you can be vocal, resist false narratives, resist Russian propaganda. And if you hear, for instance, that Russia is a defender of Muslim world, resist it, it's not true. Just remind these people about two Chechens war. And I think it's easy to find information how Russia treats its own Muslims, for instance, what happened in Syria as well. So the world has changed, and now every voice counts. Every voice is important. So you can be vocal, you can express and share the truth. And that's exactly what we need in this situation.
Yeah, share the truth, share the information, also to provide the cooperation between Ukrainian and Indonesian universities, US organization. We have very powerful NGOs, US NGOs in Ukraine, and also cooperation in the cultural sphere is important. During last 2 years, we established 2 academic online courses in English about Ukraine identity, about Ukraine history, and Ukraine culture, and about Crimea on international educational platform Udemy and Coursera. Please join and now about more about Ukraine. And last, about human rights and how to protect the human rights in temporary occupation territories. We haven't any possibilities to do it. During last 9 years in temporary occupied territories of Donetsk and Lugansk regions and Crimea, we haven't any international missions like UN missions for human rights, etc., etc., etc. Because for Russians, it's not a good position to the Russians. That's why we gathering the information, we gathering the cases of war crimes and also the acts of genocide during this last year. And now some of people ask me about reconciliation with Russians. And I have one clear answer. We start reconciliation after when the last Russian soldier just get out from Ukraine, including Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk regions. And when the process of reparations from Russia will start. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like also to reflect some questions. First of all, I really appreciate the question of both a student, how you can assist and help Ukraine. Sure, the first answer is informational support, because, Russia really invests big money for propaganda. They have opened special centers in different countries, and there work a lot of people who disseminate false information. That is why Ukraine don't have such much money to spend, to waste it for such things. No, we do not want to do this. We rely on you, we rely on awareness of civilized people. That is why it is really important to support us, because now you know the truth. You can find any information. You can freely use Google and a lot of sources of information. That is why The first is information, support of Ukraine like a nation, like identity, like independent country. The second is, you know, that president, your president, Mr. Widodo, had a trip to Ukraine together with his wife, and that was a statement that Indonesia will be responsible for reconstruction of some hospitals in Ukraine, in Chernihiv and Kyiv region, and they also like promised to give some medicine, humanitarian aid to Ukraine. That is why it also can be possible, and it also can be assistance to Ukraine. How to support Ukrainian economy? Just buy Ukrainian products, buy everything that's made in Ukraine. We need it as for taxes, as for our continuation and sustainability of our business. We exported a lot to Indonesia, and that is not only wheat, but it is more than 50%, but also buckwheat, some fruits, machine building products, ferroalloys, and so on. So how to keep economy? It's just to buy Ukrainian products. Then there was a question about climate changes, and I think you know about the statement of our Ukrainian president during G20, and according to his statement, according to his peaceful plan, ecocide was also mentioned in this speech. Ukraine understand that it is important, it is a real challenge now, and what should answer this challenge? Ukraine will join to Green Deal initiated by European Union. We understand that it is really important, and you know that climate change is one of the most important factors as well to provide food security in the world, because three main criteria factors that impact on food security, that is climate changes, concentration, and there is no alternative ways to find such agricultural products, and war in Ukraine. And war in Ukraine now is the key point. About environmental issues as well, I'd like to add that Ukraine have a lot of projects. For example, I'm a coordinator in the world of greening of the planet, and our representative in Indonesia, he have planted 300 mango trees in Bali in one day. It was like a campaign promotion of this project, greening of the planet, and we do it in each country. 130 countries joined this project, and it was initiated by Ukraine with the support of our embassies, with the support of our partners. So we really understand the role, and that is important question, I mean, environmental and climate. Yeah, and I forgot about what I'd like to add. So,
Well, the question on the future. Easy. We are a democratic state, so we will decide how to move forward by ourselves. Okay, this is very important. Okay, before the war, I was criticizing my president. You know, we have the right to do that, no problem. You know that in Russia, if you say there's a war in Ukraine, what will happen to you? Do you know? Imprisoned. It's not legal to use the term war in Ukraine, in Russia. They use special military operation. Okay, so this is like totalitarian. Yeah.
It was confusing.
What?
It's not legal to use the word war. Ukraine in Russia, it's not legal.
Okay, we are free country. Even now we have martial law, but there is a possibility for us to say, okay, we are going to criticize some government officials for wrongdoings. Still possible. So, you know, now during the war, Ukrainians appear to be very united. Civil society is very energetic, very dynamic, volunteering, donating to the army. So, and definitely there are threats. You know, there are always threats to democracy. But because we are democratic, because we are united, I think we will survive and continue to do that. On the issue, what you could do, what Indonesia could do. Look, you are the largest Muslim country in the world, right? And there is Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Raise your voice to defend human rights of Muslims in Ukraine. First. Second, there is intergovernmental organization which is called Crimean Platform. 50 countries joined. It's about the occupation of Crimea. I'm not sure that Indonesian government would decide to join it, but you know, at least spread the word about it. Huh?
Everything is changing.
Everything is changing, yes. But Crimea Platform, so different countries who united, you know, to think about how to deoccupy Crimea and how to defend the rights of Ukrainians, Crimean Tatars, and even ethnic Russians who are living in Crimea, but who are in favor of democracy and Ukraine. Again, there is no problems with ethnic Russians living in Ukraine. They are a legitimate part of Ukrainian political nation. And one more point is, we're actually Indonesian government. I think so. Okay, I cannot, you know, I think so. Because this is a threat to the Cold War. Never ever in history, nuclear power station was occupied by foreign power. And that's exactly what happened in Ukraine. First with Chernobyl. Russians occupied Chernobyl, then they withdraw. But now they're occupying Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. This is the largest nuclear power station in Europe, the largest. So Russians occupied it, they put their military munition, Ukrainian personnel is under threat, under pressure. It's a very dangerous situation, very dangerous. So demand, we need to demand for Russian soldiers to leave it. Okay, we are not talking given, okay, Ukrainian troops will come, but international, you know, experts could come and control the situation, but demand Russia to leave it because it's extremely dangerous situation. If anything happens there, you know, the consequences for the world, for climate change, you know, would be really dramatic. So there are a lot of things which can be done at governmental level, parliamentary, academic, youth. Well, actually I wanted to say we rely on you. Because you are young, brave, and smart.
You know, the peaceful and pro-democratic protests in Ukraine in 2014 was called Revolution of Dignity. It's about dignity for us. We will never allow somebody to decide how we should live. And I think I'm answering the question about the future. And the best answer would be the words of our chief of command, General Zaluzhny. He once said, it might be very, very, very difficult for us, but now it will not be embarrassing, surely. So it's not going to be embarrassing because we are fighting fiercely and we are fighting for the right to exist, for our freedom and independence, and we know that we are on the bright side of the history. Thank you.
But you know what is the most important when we talked about future? Ukraine society thinking about the future after victory.
Trying to show student revolution, you know. My first slide, you know, many students who are standing in main Ukrainian square, and that's how the revolution started. They played very, very important roles. Yes, students, they came when the government said they are not going to sign association agreement. Students came. They were brutally beaten. Next slide.
It's a part of my life also. Yeah, in Maidan. Yeah,
They were
during.
brutally beaten. Next slide. Yes. When the students were beaten, Ukrainians said no. And they immediately, so students were beaten during the night, in the evening. That's what happened. All the Kievites, came, to defend our children, our future, and our future. You are with us, we are with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's give him a big hand. Sorry.
Just to reflect to your question about rebuilding of Ukraine. Now Ukraine is creating a short-term plan and long-term plan of our reconstruction and rebuilding. I just like to mention that we need some comfortable circumstances for us. For example, you should remember the massive attack of Russian missiles in the center of Kiev near Taras Shevchenko University, and our road was totally destroyed. It was just such a big yama in English.
Yama?
Dig, yeah. But in 2 days, it was reconstruct. And if to compare roads in Russia, for example, they do not thinking about their welfare, and it is not destroyed by missiles. It is destroyed by them. So,
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I would like to show my daughter, who was a pupil during Maidan events. So father was there, and daughter came here to receive a blessing. So it was very peaceful, very peaceful.
Thank you. And actually, I have one last point to make. Some people have been asking me this, but what do you think about President Putin's offer to President Jokowi to pay for the new capital that we're building, the IKN, right? My answer is very simple: don't take the money. You know why? If this is going to be the new capital of Indonesia, it's going to be very sacred. Like it's our baby, right? Is where our dignity, our soul is there, right? Do you want blood money there? Yeah. Do you want blood money? No. You don't want dirty money. You don't want bad money, right? Let's keep it pure and sacred for our nation. So that's my answer. And I hope if people ask you that question, you say the same, and I hope the Indonesian government is listening. Okay. With that, thank you so much to all our Ukrainian friends. Yeah. So.
I do not understand what is thank you so much.
Terima kasih. And we just ending early because I want to give the chance for everybody to mingle and take pictures with our Ukrainian friends. And by the way, University of Sudirman, Akmal mana ya? Yeah. Anyways, University of Sudirman, when I visited there, offered to take 20 Ukrainian students, right? So I'm gonna coordinate with you. If you have any candidates, they'll be very welcome to study in Indonesia. Yeah. Okay. And I'll talk more with Ambassador Basil on this. Yeah. Thank you. Let's give them all a big hand and happy Mingo. Yeah. Thank you.
This is Ukrainian trident, which is our coat of arms. So it's not victory, but we show it like this.
Dr. Dino, we are going to take a picture of all the panelists. Yeah. The committee, please assist. The camera will be facing here. All right. Ambassador Fasil should join.
I'll be in the middle so my wife will be jealous.
That's a good point. I always do. Exactly.
Once again, thank you very much to our panelists, Dr. Oleksiy, Ms. Lyubov, Ms. Anna, Mr. Alim Ali, for the fruitful discussion. Just for your information, ladies and gentlemen, this public forum is available for rewatch in our YouTube channel, Secretariat FPCI. And please don't forget to share your moments with us and tag us on Twitter or Instagram at FPCindo. Thank you once again for attending to all participants here, and thank you for tuning in to all the participants joining online. Feel free to mingle around. See you in our next events.